Welcome to another segment of Being More Effective. I'm Neal Gray. Whether you want to be more effective as a leader, as a better team member, or just your desire as an individual to grow and develop, we appreciate your time. We hope the time you spend with us is meaningful. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. And my name is Magnus Almgren. I'm a professional certified coach. I live in Sweden, and I've been working together on a regular basis with Neal for almost a decade now. So I'm really interested in the way Neal is thinking, and he's taught me a lot. And I'm so curious about hearing a little bit about the way you're thinking, Neal, and also for our listeners and watchers. So the thing that impressed me most, I must say, was the experience you had when you were a car salesman. And you told me a little bit about the way you were looking at the customer, which for me, as you know, I don't know anything about sales or selling cars anyway, but I have a lot of prejudgment. And you broke all this for me. So you were having a special way of looking at the customers and trying to find out their needs. Could you tell me and us a bit about that, please?
Sure, Magnus. The typical car salesman, and it's somewhat stereotyped, but somewhat true, is that they're there to sell you whatever they can that they've got on the lot. And it's about them and the sales as opposed to about you, the customer. Where I worked at the car store, the philosophy was very different. The philosophy was we need to get to know the customer so that we can help them find the best vehicle to meet their needs. So we would spend, not lots and lots of time, but we would ask questions to understand why they were there. For example, when we greeted them at the door, we'd say, "Hi, my name is Neal. What brings you into the store today?" We don't know if they're wanting a car appraised, if they wanted to sell, do they want to buy a car, do they need a spare car, were they in an accident? All those things factor in to the process and the mindset of where the customer is. And so we would do a lot of asking questions to understand the need so that we could then find or help them find the vehicle that best met that need. So it was very much seeking to understand and then worrying about what we were going to, sell them per se. But the key is most people, when they come in, they're looking to buy something, but they don't want to be sold anything. The connotation being, if you're selling me something, I probably really don't want that. You're just trying to get me to. If I come in to buy something, I have a need and I'm looking for something specific. So when we think about it in terms of that customer and their needs, it changes the conversation.
That sounds to me as a coach, and I know you're a coach too, that very much like coaching. I mean, how do you think that's right in a sales situation?
Yeah, very much so. In fact, at the car store I worked at, we were not considered to be salespeople. We were sales consultants, and that's why they wanted to emphasize the questioning and the understanding, just like a coach. I mean, you're right. You're really coaching the people through the process and through the understanding so that they had clarity of what they want. Sometimes they came in and would know exactly what they were looking for because maybe they went out on the website, they did some searching, they found the perfect vehicle, and they're just in to look at that one car and buy it if there's no reason not to, which is great, but that's not what most people are. I need or I want to get something. I kind of have a budget. I think I know what I like, but I'm here to find something. So it's our job as a sales consultant or a coach, if you will, is to get through to what that is and get to that deeper understanding. They may have come in thinking that all they can afford was a very small compact. And yet, based on their needs and what we have and what they're trying to do, a mid-sized car might actually work out better for them and maybe even still be in their budget. They might come in only thinking of one brand, and yet once they start looking at some options, it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. I never thought about this other brand over here. That might be a better option. So it's very much like coaching, trying to get them to a better understanding for themselves, in which case I'm also learning, and then together we find the best vehicle for them.
Is that profitable? I mean, you're not selling them or me as a customer. You're not even advising me. You're asking me questions all the time.
Yeah. Well, but ultimately, the questioning, the predominance of the questions happens in the first few minutes. Why are you here? Who's going to be driving the car? What do you use the vehicle for? Do you have a budget you need to stay in? Things like that. As you go in, you then begin to talk in terms of, okay, well, here's some options that we have. But then you start asking more specifics. Because once you start looking at options, then there's the issue of features. Do you need satellite radio? Yes or no? Do you want a built-in GPS map for doing a lot of driving? Do you need a vehicle that has many person capacity, like an SUV or a minivan? And if so, do you need to have a DVD player in there to keep the kids entertained on long drives? I don't know if this person uses a car just around the area or if they take long trips. So either way, the better I understand that. But questioning happens the whole time, but conversation happens in between the questions as well, in terms of options and choices. Even comes down to color. I can't stand black. I would never buy a white. I really like blue. Well, if we're not asking questions, oftentimes you don't get to that answer. What you end up doing if you're not asking the questions is you see a lot of scrunched up faces. In other words, they're looking at things that they don't really like. But if you're not asking questions about why their face looks like that, you don't know what they're thinking. It might be that you're showing them blue cars and they hate blue, but they haven't looked at that yet. I can't tell you how many times I'll look at somebody across the desk when we're looking at inventory on the computer, and I'll say, I'm not seeing a lot of excitement here. What is it that you don't like about what you see? What's missing? And sometimes that's the question that gets, this. Well, okay. So the questioning and ongoing questioning is important as appropriate. It's not just a total barrage of questions.
My ready-made thought about call salesmen is that they would like to manipulate me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious about when you do this, which is, for my mind at least, very much different. Do you get the feeling, or do they get the feeling that they are manipulated in another way?
Well, that depends on how you ask the question. If you're asking the questions just like a coach would, which is more empathetic, more understanding mode, it's really about finding what's going to make them happy. I mean, the whole goal at the car store that I worked at was that we wanted them to drive out happy with whatever they got. With the particular place that I worked, one of the things that made it a little different was that the commission paid to the salesperson was the same regardless of the price of the car. So there was no incentive as a sales consultant to sell them a $50,000 car when their budget was $20,000.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is, but it also still brought up sometimes a challenge, because when people come into any kind of a car store, they're very guarded usually about their budget because they're afraid if they tell you what their budget is, you're going to try to take it all.
Exactly.
Plus more, right, to do that. And so to get them comfortable with, I would never ask the budget question right away. I want to ask other questions to get them comfortable that, hey, I'm really interested in them. And then I'll approach the budget question. Are you trying to stay within a budget, either a price or a monthly payment wise? And once you've begun to build a rapport, you can ask that question and usually they'll be fine with it. But before I've asked the question, somewhere in the conversation, I've told them that there's no incentive to me whether they walk out in a $20,000 car or a $50,000 car.
Okay.
It's no difference to me. I'm here to meet your needs, and that also helps to relax them. So it's important that the customer has some understanding and comfort with the process that you're about to lead them through, so that they don't feel manipulated, but they feel like almost like it's a partnership trying to get them to the right vehicle.
So you actually tell them that you don't earn any more money for selling an expensive car than a cheap one.
Absolutely, all the time. Yeah.
Okay.
I find it to be a very calming thing, and I think the other sales consultants in the store, the same thing. That when they understood that we weren't there to wring them out of every penny because we wanted to line our pockets with, all the money we could. It's a different dynamic because now they're less protective of their budget because they understand that if I can find them a $15,000 car, even though they have a $20,000 budget, and it meets all their needs, I'm good with that, and they're happy too because it was under their budget. So it's a win-win.
I would feel safer too if I knew that in the car sales or in when I met with a salesperson that told me that I'm not interested in any kind of car because I won't earn anything more. It's more like it meets your needs, like you said. That would create a lot of security for me or safety.
Yeah, it really makes it much more of a retail store environment. I mean, nobody minds going to the local electronics store to buy a new computer or a new TV, because most of the time those people are being paid an hourly wage, and they're there to help you to find the one that you want. And it doesn't matter to them whether you buy the Apple or you buy the Microsoft or whatever you buy. And so people are comfortable with that environment. They're not used to that in a car environment. In a car environment, the salesperson gets a piece of the price, and so they're hesitant to share their budget in those kinds of situations. So it's all about building the rapport, very similar to coaching.
I have to tell you all who are listening and watching this that I would really like to go to the States and buy a car from Neal because it would be such an interesting experience. Now, Neal, the question I have is something you told me a long time ago about customers coming in and being sort of ready-made in their choice. Like I come into you and I say I want a BMW 518 or whatever they call, and you told me that you don't quite accept that from the beginning. That's very much like coaching for me. I mean, and for you, of course, it's more like when the client comes in and has some ready-made thinking about this is what I need to do and everything. What we do as a coach is to ask more questions to clarify. And could you tell me a bit more about that when I come in and what my BMW 518?
Well, sure. One of my first questions would be, so what is it about that car that you really like? Why that car? Again, I want to understand why that car, just to make sure that they're articulating to me that this is why they feel it's the best choice. Now, I may have another option for them. Maybe they've seen it and just already decided no. Maybe they haven't. I don't know that. I don't take at face value what they come in for. I'm not dismissing it. I just don't take it immediately at face value because I want to understand why. You know, sometimes it's because they've looked at our website and they feel that the only car they can afford is this one. So they've come in to look at this car that they believe is the only car they can afford. And it may be, but until I ask a few questions, I don't know, with any certainty. And I want to make sure they walk out happy with whatever it is they choose. So if it ends up being the car that they've already researched, I can tell you my wife did it this way. She researched exactly what kind of car. She looked at multiple things. She looked on the website for the store, identified exactly the vehicle that she wanted, and she came in to test drive it and buy it. There was no other car that she was interested in. She'd done her homework, and she was ready to go. You know, and that's fine. That's great. Simplifies the process for the sales consultant because they know what they want. It makes it a quicker in, taken care of, out, happy customer, move on to the next. But sometimes they think they know what they want based on not all the evidence, not all the facts. So that's what I need to make sure that they're in the right place for.
Did she do the same thing when she chose her husband?
Very possibly. I don't know. It was a long time ago, so it was a long-term sale.
Seems like a good trade. So when you say that you don't take it for face value, when I come in and you're being very specific, now what makes you do that? I mean, it would be more comfortable for you, wouldn't it? Just to, okay, he was a BMW, fine. I'll show him this one, and we have this one and this one. What makes you ask the questions?
Again, it's a matter. It's just like with coaching. You know, you have a new client, and they come in and say, this is what I need to work on. Okay, great. But let me ask some questions so I can understand why you believe that's what it is you need to work on. Because I find that there are times when the person comes in and what they want to work on is a results issue as opposed to needing to work on the cause. It could be, this and this and this is happening. We need to fix this. When the reality is there's something else over here that they need to do first before that fix will even work. But if you don't ask questions and understand where they're coming from better, then there's no chance that you're going to get to that. You're just going to go trying to deal with, the visual. It's like, there's this iceberg out here in my lake. If I just chop off the top of the iceberg, my problems are gone. But there's this whole block of ice that's underwater that's lifting this piece up to be seen. And once you chop that top off, more of the iceberg will float to the top. And so you keep chopping rather than going down into and say, all right, how can we explode this iceberg and make it a bunch of little pieces that are not such a big deal that then resolves what you can see on the top. It's the same thing. I've had people come in and say, I can remember one experience. I had a gentleman who spotted a car on our website at our store, didn't even call ahead to have us hold the car, which was interesting. He drove down from northern Ohio to southern Ohio. That's at least a 4-hour drive. Drove down and said, I'm here to buy that car. I want you to take my car, and I'm driving back home tonight in that car. Well, the car was still there when they got there. No one else, had decided they wanted to buy it. So I said, great. So let's take it out on a quick test drive. He said, well, do we have to? I said, well, no, we don't, but I would like to know that if you're going to take a 4-hour drive back home, that you've at least driven in it for 10 minutes and you're okay with it. Yeah, okay, fine. I'll do that. Makes sense. So we did the test drive. Everything was fine. We finished the sale, and he left, and he drove back home to Cleveland that same day. That was an interesting, rare situation, but he knew what he wanted. He was there to buy it. He had no question in his mind, and let's get it done. Okay. Now, I asked questions along the way, on the test drive, what was driving, what do you like about the car, what made you pick this car. Again, I want to understand my customer's motivation, even though we're not going to change anything. He's getting what he came for. I just like to make sure that I feel good about that exchange and that transaction by having asked a few of those questions to do that way. So, we get the whole gamut, because we'd also get the people at the other end that, they've just been in an accident, their car's been totaled, they have no transportation, their friend just brought them to the car store, they're desperate for something. Well, I don't want to sell them anything, because down the line they'll probably be unhappy with that. I want to understand, well, what was it you were driving? Why did you like that? Do you want something similar to that, or a replacement for that? What do you need? And so asking more questions becomes much more relevant in that scenario. But still, either one, I was still asking questions, just differently based on the situation.
The way you're doing things is what I would call, as a coach, I would call that sort of coaching leadership. And I'm wondering, could you phrase that as some kind of rule for us who are not so experienced but are interested in coaching or the coaching way of doing things?
Well, I think the key comes down to just asking questions, not just for the sake of asking questions, but asking questions that seek to understand better whoever it is who's in front of you. I know that I used to do a lot of one-on-one networking a few years back. And in the one-on-one networking, the idea was to get to know each other. But I always went into it with my own personal challenge, and I didn't tell the other person this that I was talking to. My challenge was I wanted them talking 90% of the time and me only talking 10%, which means I had to ask really good questions to have them continue to talk.
Okay.
Yeah. And at the end of the time together, they would be, wow, I've been doing all the talking here. I said, yeah, you have. And it's been very interesting. So, gee, I didn't ask you a whole lot of questions. I said, well, what questions do you have? And let them ask, some questions. Sometimes they would ask questions along the way, but I would answer it. But then I would turn around and right away ask another question. Again, when I was networking one-on-one with people, I was seeking to truly understand why were they doing what they were doing? What did they like? What were their challenges? Because if I was going to, coach them, I wanted to know up front if they were even the kind of person that I wanted to coach. So whether it's sales or coaching or networking or whatever you're doing that way, when there's someone else in front of you that you're having any kind of a conversation, I find it's better to ask questions and shut up than it is to talk a lot. Most salespeople talk too much, and that's the challenge. And I can have that same tendency. And so I have to keep this conscious in my mind that I need to ask another question. I don't need to say so much because it becomes irrelevant if I talk too much. I want the customer or the person in front of me to feel that this whole conversation is about them. And I think that's the key.
You remind me very much of a saying by your American, very, very famous man, Dale Carnegie. He said that if you want to become very interesting person, make people talk about themselves.
Yeah, that's the number one topic that people want. They love talking about themselves, their families, or whatever. So those questions come up as well. It's not just about them. Oh, you get an SUV. Well, do you have a family? What do you use it for? Oh, yeah, I have 3 kids. Oh, boys, girls, what do you have? How old are they? Now, none of that is relevant to selling the car per se, and yet it's understanding why they're going to use the vehicle and whether or not there's something else I should ask them to make sure it's a relevant choice for that size family. I had one gentleman come in. He had, what was it, eight kids. He and his family, he and his wife had 8 kids. They had been double strapping kids in seatbelts because they couldn't find a vehicle big enough.
Okay.
So we were looking for a vehicle big enough to handle 10 to 12 people, all seat belted. And he also required that they had to have headrests for all the seats. Well, a lot of big vans don't put headrests in the backmost seats. So that was a challenge. But understanding what and why and what he was looking for and why it was important, then led us to, we eventually found a vehicle that fit what they needed to do, and he bought it. But again, without understanding size of family, you don't understand that the typical, SUV or minivan isn't big enough. So it's not going to be a sale because they're already struggling with that size vehicle. But without asking good questions, you may not get to that.
So then, when I'm a leader or something, like a salesman, I have so much to say and so much information, and you're asking me basically to ask questions and shut up. And how do I make that change? I mean, I have so many important things to say.
Yeah, well, and most of them, nobody cares.
Okay.
When you get right down to it, again, if you go in with the perspective that it's all about the customer, it's not about what I have to say, it's about what they need. And if I'm talking, I'm not listening. And if I'm not listening, I don't understand their needs. All I have is, I have this product. I'm here to sell you this product. This is going to be a great product. Why don't you buy my product? As opposed to, I'm coming in to find out what your needs are. And do I have a product that fits? And once I understand those needs, I can say, hey, here's why this product would be a good fit for you. And then I can tell you something about it. But it's a shorter conversation because I don't have to tell you about all the bells and whistles, all the features, all the strengths, or what have you. I can hone in on the few that really talk to your need. But if I'm not asking questions and listening, I don't know what those few are. So I don't need to spew all the information. I just need to share what's relevant. I got to figure relevant out first.
And finding out what's relevant, is that when you ask the questions?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm still thinking about, if I'm like the CEO or something like that, shouldn't I, in my leadership, tell people?
Well, again, tell them what? What's important to them to be told?
Everything out of my wisdom. I'm hired by the company to be the wise guy.
Well, but the reality is, again, most people don't want to listen. They're too busy to listen. They've got too many other things on their mind. So it's a balancing act because, like you said, you have so much that you want to share. I find the same challenge personally when I facilitate group training and group discussions. I have so much that I feel like I could share, that I could be up there and, in essence, lecture. as opposed to facilitated discussion. But the reality is, most of the best stuff is distributed between all the people in the room, and I want to get them talking so they share from their life experiences, from the things that they've encountered or what they've read, or to get that in there. So I still have that same challenge that we're talking about, is that I like to talk and hear myself talk, but I also have to practice, and I do it constantly, ask a question and shut up. And then when somebody says something, ask another question and shut up. And that's the key. I could talk for days. Nobody wants to hear me talk for days. They want to share their relevant information as well. So I have to be the one that makes sure they get as much talk time as they need. But to do that, I have to be quiet.
Mm-hmm. So ask the questions and shut up.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good rule.
Yes, it's one that I work on daily. I can't say I live.
Okay.
I live by it, because I struggle with it every day as well. Because, like you said, I have so much stuff that I could tell them about. In the car store, I got all these cars out here I can tell them about. All these cool things, how we support the customer, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'll get to it eventually. I don't have to do it all at once. It's more important that I pick and choose what's important to them, but I don't know until I ask questions.
Then I'm curious about, I'm hiring you here as some kind of leader, and shouldn't you know? I mean, you're going asking questions all the time and shutting up. And don't I hire you to know everything?
Yeah, you would think so, but the answer is no. If you're hiring a coach, you're not hiring the coach because the coach knows everything. A coach can't know everything about the background and the industry and the whatever that the person is coming to them. Same with a sales person or sales consultant at a car store. I can remember when I was doing a lot of business coaching, I would go into a company initially talking to them about whether or not coaching was something they wanted to do. And one of the questions they almost always asked was, so what do you know about our industry? And my answer would be, well, nothing. Why? Does that matter? Which would shock them. They'd be like, well, yeah, we thought you. I said, no. You're the expert in your industry because you are in it and you know what's going on. It's not your industry that's the challenges that you're having. Based on our conversation, my coaching is about how to be a better person, how to be a better leader, how to have better teams, how to turn my business, into something better than what it is. It's regardless of the industry. My expertise has nothing to do with your industry. It has to do with you're a small business owner. And most of them would go, well, okay, that makes sense. And then we move on. So a salesperson, a coach, a leader doesn't have to know everything. They have to know how to find everything. And usually it's found in the other people in the room.
So that sounds like another way of leading people, is it?
Well, yeah. I mean, so many people who are in leadership roles think that they have to know everything.
Yeah.
And actually, some of the best leaders don't know much at all of the specifics of the people that they're leading in terms of how to do their job. The challenge is that in most companies, you do the job and you do it well. And somebody says, we're promoting you to be a manager, a leader, right? So now your responsibility isn't to do the job, it's to lead the people who do the job. The problem is you're still the expert in doing the job. And that new leader has to throw the mindset away because it's no longer about them doing the job. It's about them taking care of the people who are doing the job. Or as they go up in the rank within a company, they're taking care of the people who are taking care of the people who are taking care of the people who are doing the job. You know, they get further and further removed. They don't need that detailed level expertise. A good leader is leading people, is not leading tasks. And I think that's one of the major differences to me between someone who is a manager and who's a leader. Managers are about getting the task done on a timely basis, whatever it takes. A leader is about making sure there's a positive, good working environment for the team so that they can function at the best level that they can function, which ultimately gets everything done. So the focus is on people if you're a leadership. The focus tends to be on tasks if you're a manager. And again, managers think they need to know all the specifics because they keep trying to manage the tasks. Mm-hmm. The leader is no longer, well, I can't say they're not interested in the task, but it's down their priority list. What's up on their priority list is taking care of the people so that they're in the best environment and state of mind so that they will be the most productive to get the most done. So it's a very different mindset to do that. And that's why so many companies struggle, because they aren't teaching their new leaders by title how to be true leaders by practice. And again, you don't have to know it all.
You were saying that the car company aim was to have the customers drive away happy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is that the same with in leadership in general? I mean, do you want to, it sounds like you want to have people happy.
Well, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, if the people on your team are happy, they're going to be more productive. They're going to more likely be in on time or early. They're going to more likely be productive up to the time that they leave, maybe even late. But they're doing it because they're happy and they enjoy the environment that they're in and what they're accomplishing and how they're being treated by leadership. Yeah, that's just the kind of thing where if you get that environment and that leadership right, oftentimes people might be offered more money from another company and they'll go, no, I'm good where I am right now, because they're happy. I came across information about a study, at least in the United States, that says upwards of 80% of employees don't even like their job, let alone be happy in their job. Well, that's pretty sad if our workforce is 80% not even liking what they're doing or where they are or the people they work with or the manager that they or something. They're not happy, they don't like it, let alone be happy. What would happen to the workforce if the leadership truly became leaders of people and set up the environment and did the things on a day-to-day basis to be true leaders, to get their teams to be at a point where they're happy? How much more productive the company would be, how much more cost effective. But again, because most executives at any level have come up from a do the job perspective, they're still focused on what does it take to get more of the job done. I've heard it described as trying to take a wet towel and wring more water out of it. How can I get more out of my employees? And that's not the question. Simon Sinek, who wrote the book, Start With Why, talks about the fact that wringing more productivity out of the team is not the right question. It's about how do I set up an environment where the people feel safe, they feel that they have a leader, and they're happy about doing what they're doing. Then you're going to get more from the people because they want to give more, not because you found a way to squeeze it out of them. So, again, those leaders don't need to have all the answers. What they need to have is that interest to take care of their people.
That's a great saying, Neal. Thank you so much for coming to my show tonight.
Thank you for watching today. We know you have many things in your busy schedule, and we appreciate the time you spent with us. It's our hope that we gave you some insight and information that can help you have a better, more effective day. We would love to have you be a subscriber, but we understand that everybody asks you to be a subscriber, and you can't subscribe to everything. If you do, thank you. And if not, maybe you'll consider subscribing on another day. In the meantime, make it a most incredible day.